Hello again. So nearly there, and yet seemingly still so far away. I guess we'd all been thinking that by now we would be just a couple of weeks away from the end of all the restrictions we've been living under, able to go back to a fairly normal life. But now that 21st June date looks as though it could be pushed back. And anyway, it looks fairly certain that the end of all restrictions won't mean the end of all restrictions. We're likely to still be socially distancing and wearing face masks for a while yet, I fear. And it is leaving people frustrated. And when people are frustrated, they all too easily take it out on each other. The last 15 months has put a big strain on many relationships. But as we gradually move towards some sort of normality, those strains could get even worse. Those who want to get back to normal will be frustrated with those who want to continue to be very careful, and vice versa. Could even be an issue within church, which makes our next Psalm of Ascents particularly relevant. So let me read Psalm 133. How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. It is like precious oil poured on the head, running down on the beard, running down on Aaron's beard, down on the collar of his robe. It is as if the dew of Hermon were falling on Mount Zion. For there the Lord bestows his blessing, even life forevermore. How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. And of course we know that's true. Life is so much better when everyone is getting along well, when there are no rows or fights or fallings out. Literally, the psalm says, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. And again, any parent will know how true that is. Happy family life makes everything better. We know it's true. But despite that, unity is not always the story of our lives. Look back in the Bible. The first pair of brothers, Cain and Abel, and Cain killed Abel. Joseph's brothers sold him as a slave. Aaron and Miriam ganged up against Moses. And the whole of human history seems to be a story of brothers not living together in unity. Why is it like that? Why is it that even though we know life is so much better for everyone, including us, when our relationships are good, despite that, we fall out and fight and end up miserable? For the answer to that, as is so often the case, we have to go back to the beginning. God created a perfect world for people to live in, under his rule. Adam and Eve rebelled because they wanted to be the centre of their world, not God. And the result was they immediately started the blame game. And ever since then, all of us have had inside us something that makes us want our own way, which is really what lies at the heart of sin. But of course, if I'm going to be at the centre of my world, you can't be. And so if you don't go along with what I want, we'll fall out. And so, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. And how rare. So what is the answer? Well, really, it can only lie in the gospel. That is the only thing which can break down the desire we have to be at the centre. In Ephesians 2, just after Paul has spoken about being saved by grace, Jesus' death for us, he goes straight on to talk about the impact that should have on Jewish and Gentile Christians, two groups who did not get on, to put it mildly. For he himself is our peace, who has made the two groups one, and has destroyed the barrier, the dividing wall of hostility. Jesus did not just die so that individuals could go to heaven. He died to bring his church into being, a body that should be marked by unity. But it doesn't come naturally, which I think is why repeatedly through the New Testament The early Christians are told to guard and protect their unity. It was even something Jesus prayed for on the night before his death. Having prayed for his disciples, he went on in John 17, "My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you." It is one of the most important ways in which we can demonstrate the power of the gospel to our community, by showing them a group of people who have genuine unity. Now, I guess that most of us have heard that many times before. But even though we know that unity is important for us as disciples, why does this psalm come here in the Psalms of Ascent? These were psalms which the pilgrims sang as they made their way to Jerusalem for some festival. They would, of course, walk. It could have taken a few days. And I guess that as they got closer to the end, they got more tired. They'd been together for a while, and maybe little irritations had started to creep in. Maybe this is the last but one of the Psalms, because it is towards the end of the journey that disunity is most likely to set in. And maybe that's a message for us. We've been apart for so long, and we're now into the process of coming back together. We have to get used to each other again. Our relationships need to be rebuilt. We have to learn again to put each other's concerns before our own. We have to bear with those who want to rush forwards much quicker than we do, and with those whose anxieties mean they want to take things much more slowly. So we need to be reminded how good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity. Because even though we might have our own preferences and plans, when as a church we enjoy that unity, it is like precious oil poured on the head, running down on the beard, running down on Aaron's beard, down on the collar of his robe. Precious oil, fragrant, soothing. That's what unity in Christ Church is like. It's as if the dew of Hermon were falling on Mount Zion. Hermon, one of the highest mountains in the region, where the dew was heavy, and as it flowed down, it refreshed everywhere. That's what unity in Christ Church is like. And more important than both of those, for there the Lord bestows his blessing. Our unity matters to God. After all, his Son died to achieve it. And it is when we keep that unity that God will be at work among us. He will not work in a church that is disunited. It would go against his purposes. For there the Lord bestows his blessing, even life forevermore. There is something about a church in unity that is a foretaste of heaven. So as we come back together with so much that we want to do, let's make sure that at this stage on our journey of discipleship, we remind one another of Psalm 133. How good and pleasant it is when God's people live together in unity.